Hey guys, FirstinWeather here, back at it again with another video. Again, the main story today is Hurricane Florence. It really just came out of nowhere over the past few days. It was basically off the radar, and then suddenly the chances for its development went up, and now, before we know it, it is a hurricane. And with the latest 7 p.m. National Weather Service track advisory, it is expected to intensify into a major hurricane before making landfall in the panhandle of Florida, somewhere in this area right here where you see those reds. Those are hurricane warnings, and on the edges of that you have tropical storm warnings, and on the edges of that you have, in the yellow, tropical storm watches. So again, this is a very dangerous storm. We have winds right now right around sustained at 85 miles per hour. As this hurricane does strengthen, winds will intensify, and when it makes landfall, winds will be at 120 miles per hour. And then once it goes over land, according to the National Weather Service track, it will then quickly weaken, and then will weaken and then re-strengthen again as it goes out to sea like this. Alright, so the models are pretty decided on where this is going to go, and the only real doubts are whether the storm will go like this. It's a little bit too far to the east. If I go like this and take a coastal track, this would be much worse for the coastal sections, because the storm would then intensify being near the coast, give a lot more rains to the coast and a lot more heavy winds. Or if it would go like this, and that would bring less winds and more inland rain, so that would be good for the coast. And you'll see that right here. Actually, no, this is a satellite view, so you can see we have that good strong rotation right here. This is the eye, a well-defined eye right here, and then you have the outer bands, well-defined outer bands like this and like this. So this is a well-defined hurricane. As you can see, its structure is nice. Its outer bands are quite well formed, and so that only goes to show that this is a dangerous storm that needs to be taken seriously. Now, if you look at the latest tracks, these are all the major hurricane models, all the other major global models, all of them compiled together, and as you can see, they've come closer in consensus to this area right here, so southeastern Virginia. So this is basically a blend of the track going like this or the track going like this. Alright, so this is basically a blend of wind and rain, and I can show you what I mean when I go to the 18Z track. Right, in the 18Z track you had some of them going like this, some of them going like this, and then you had more going like this. So definitely it has consolidated quite a bit, with it focusing really on this area right here. Actually, give me 1 second. If I go to the 12Z, yeah, so the 12Z was where the uncertainty was. Some were taking it here and others were taking it like this, and so that would have a huge difference. But it consolidated in the 18Z, and now even more so in the 0Z run with this. So you can see it's going to go make landfall near Tallahassee, right around this area, then go through the middle of Georgia, through northwestern South Carolina, and then take this right turn and go through between Richmond and Norfolk as time goes on. And now going back, switching gears to the first slide, I want to focus on the impacts for Florida. So again, this is going to hit Florida as a major hurricane. So this area right here, the panhandle of Florida, expect major hurricane conditions. High winds, hurricane force winds are now very likely, near 100% likelihood. We're going to see catastrophic wind damage, storm surge, and also flooding rains. We could see anywhere from 6 to 15 inches of rain in this area right here. Isolated areas could even see more. So really, this area is going to see the brunt of the storm. Luckily, as this goes over land, it's going to really just tear apart, so the main threat will become flooding, especially in Georgia, and after that the threat level significantly diminishes, except for these coastal areas right here. So that is the good news. And this also is a very fast moving storm. If you can see, it moves quite quickly, This is 1 p.m. Friday, 1 p.m. Saturday, this is 1 p.m. Thursday, so it's a very quick move around like Florence. The flooding threat is also not as bad as it was with Florence. So that's also another piece of good news right there. Now if you look at the intensity charts, you can see that it's forecasted to strengthen into a Cat 2, maybe Cat 3. I think the National Weather Service is being a little too strong with their forecast. I think this will stay a Category 3 hurricane before rapidly weakening, and then it should eventually re-strengthen as it goes out to sea. So now let's look at the forecast models as the GFS. The GFS does take it, makes landfall right here, right, and then it takes it through, and its track goes more like this. The GFS takes it more like this, all right. Or no, sorry, it takes it actually through southeastern Virginia, so it takes it more like this. Alright, now if we look at the new and improved GFS, which will go into effect January 2019, let's see what this model is saying. So this one has it making landfall around the same spot, alright, and then but this one, if you notice, gives it a much more inland track. So the reason for this is this ridge right here. So this model is making that ridge much stronger, alright, forcing that thing to go west. And this inland track would mean a lot of the rains and stuff would be right here. So at this point, since it's been so inland, it really wouldn't even have any tropical characteristics. It would just be a strong low pressure with very heavy rains and flooding potential, and that would mainly be in the mountains of West Virginia, where the flooding could be amplified due to elevation changes. So with the FV3 GFS, the main threat would be in this area right here. With the GFS right now, the main threat level would be right here. And now if we switch gears to the European, the European is taking a different approach with this model. Bit of a tongue twister there for some reason. It makes landfall with this storm in the same spot, but if you notice, it takes a much more coastal approach. It doesn't even enter southeastern Virginia. It goes more like this, all right? And this will be very devastating for the coastal areas of North Carolina, because if you notice, as it's able to go back on sea, close to land, it definitely re-intensifies. That would bring tropical storm, potentially hurricane force winds for North Carolina, or at least the coastal sections of North Carolina. Now going back to precipitation, the main flooding threat is going to be in the panhandle of Florida and then into Georgia, but also as this thing re-intensifies, Virginia, southeastern Virginia, and eastern North Carolina especially could see some pretty heavy rainfall totals. We're talking maybe 6 inches in isolated spots, but for the most part, this definitely looks like a much lower threat than Florence. In general, 2 to 4 inches for most areas, so not really anything that bad. However, any additional rainfall in an area that has already been hammered by Florence just a week ago, that also will amplify the threat for this area. And let me double check when Florence. Let me double check when the landfall was. Let's see. Alright, the landfall was September 14th. So this was a while back, not a week ago. Apologies about that error. So yeah, even though it was a while back, the rivers are still congested. Soil moisture is very high, so any rain in this area would be bad. But the relatively small amount of 2 to 4 inches will hopefully not make the flooding situation too bad over here. But there still could be areas of flooding in this area, but not the widespread flooding that we saw in Florence, but really nothing even close to that. But to reiterate, since we've had all these heavy rains right here, 2 to 4 inches still could cause some flooding in these areas, but in other areas like Virginia, really not much of a threat. Now if we go to the European, the European, these are the precip amounts for the European. As you can see, it focuses the majority of the precip in Raleigh and then in Virginia Beach, and this agrees with the track. The low goes off the coast, giving most of the rain right here. And if we go to the GFS to look at wind speeds real quick, by the way, this is also the GFS precip. So the GFS precip has it a little more inland, as you can see right here. Has the rain pushing into Richmond, pushing into Lynchburg. If we go to the GFS and look at wind speeds, pull it up. You can see that we go through time, let me pull it up. We can see that wind speeds will actually gust to, in occasion, to 40 to maybe in 45 miles per hour in the city of Richmond and locations near southeastern Virginia. And that's because as this system goes off the coast, it will re-intensify, pumping in those stronger winds to this area right here. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I will have more updates as we get closer. But again, definitely looking like a devastating storm for the panhandle of Florida. But luckily for our area, the Mid-Atlantic and the South, and including North Carolina and South Carolina, it's not looking too bad. The main threat will just be some flooding. Again, you could have some strong wind damage near the coast areas, but other than that, not really too bad of a storm. However, it still could pose a threat. Just because it isn't as bad as Florence doesn't mean it's harmless. It still will have some flooding potential, some wind damage potential. So as always, stay tuned. Always listen to your official National Weather Service forecast. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.